Welcome everyone. AGUI, the Agent User Interaction Protocol. We've seen some pretty amazing momentum in its second week. So it's at like, what, 2,400 GitHub stars. And this group, we want to actually start folding in the community for contributions, and we'll share a roadmap, and let's all build together. So um, if you're not aware, AGUI is the open, lightweight, event-based protocol for facilitating rich real-time agent user interactivity. It's a mouthful, but basically what that means is it's an open source common layer to communicate with agents via events. So a short agenda. We're going to talk about quickly what AGI is and how Mostra implemented AGUI. Marcus is going to walk through some code. And then, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we have an exciting update, and we'll leave time at the end for Q&A. So who are we? I'm Nathan Tarbert. I'm the Senior DevRel here at CopilotKit. I'm joined by Tyler Slayton, the founding engineer, Travis Murdoch, head of growth marketing, and Marcus Ecker, co-founding engineer and the creator and brains behind AGUI. So let's talk a little bit about the origin of how AGUI came about. So really kind of a backstory. CopilotKit integrated with LangGraph last summer. And basically, as we started building integrations, the next was Crew AI, and then it just kept going from there. What we figured out is, there's lots of agentic frameworks that potentially operate differently as far as syntax is concerned, but there is a way to communicate with agents through a common layer. And, that way of communication is through events, which I find extremely fascinating. And a little bit about CopilotKit. So we are the infrastructure for building AI copilots and agents. And basically what that means is if you have agents on the back end, you want to be able to serve, what that agent is doing to your users on the front end. And CopilotKit enables that. Our mission is to bridge human and artificial intelligence, and we're fully open source. I think we either crossed 20,000 stars or we're like within a few stars of 20,000. And the CopilotKit is the user interactivity for LLMs and agents. So if you think about the agent landscape and ecosystem, you've got what we're calling now an agent stack. So you've got MCP, which an agent handles tools. And then you've got A to A or ACP, which is, agents to agents. And then there's AGUI, which is agents to users. And so with all three of those, you fold in tools, agents, and the users on the front end or the client. So AGUI defines 16 standard events, and we have them listed here. Some of them are just run started. Let's see, run started, you've got steps, you've got run error, and a bunch of them. And Marcus can get into that when he starts talking about the AGUI integration with Mostra. And then we have basically a middleware layer, and Marcus is basically going to go over what this is as far as uh, how to integrate with an agentic framework. So day one, AGUI had 4 integrations that we fully support: LangGraph, Crew AI, Mostra, and AG2. And there's a long, long list of integrations that we'd like to see AGUI integrated with. And some of those are already in progress. I believe we should see Agno and Llama Index here very, very shortly. And as well as a couple other languages, which is pretty exciting. So it's really cool to see that this framework basically extends outside of web apps to, it could be, you know, other platforms like Discord, WhatsApp, and then languages as well, which is really cool. So Marcus, if you want to take it away, you want to show us how AGUI is integrated with Mostra?
Yeah, sure. I guess my screen should be visible, right? Can you see my screen?
Yes, you're visible.
Yeah, awesome. So, yes, I want to show an example of an AGUI integration that Mastra has built, or that we have built together with Mastra. It originated with through a pairing coding session with Abi, the CTO, and let's have a look at how much it takes to implement an integration with AGUI. So basically, Master put it in the packages now under AGUI. It's just one single file. It's here in the index.ts. This is a real-world implementation of an AGUI integration. So people are already using this code in the production apps. If we go through it, it's roughly 300 lines of code, 330 lines of code.
And Marcus, would you mind?
Absolutely, yeah. Making it bigger?
Yeah, please. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. I think that should be readable now. So yeah, let's go through it. Let's go through what it takes to build an integration with AGUI through this middleware layer, which is the ideal way of building integrations with existing protocols. So Mastra already has its own protocol, but they want to connect to frontends, and they're using AGUI for that. So to implement an integration, all you need to do is extend the abstract agent class, which contains the functionality that you need to emit events, and it contains other kinds of logic that is taken care of for you behind the scenes. But the main the main logic that connects to your protocol goes into this run function that you need to override. It takes an input of run agent input. So that's basically a well-defined set of parameters that every agent will get as an input, and it returns a stream of base event. And these base event is the parent class for every AGUI event. So in this case, we are using the messages from input. And a first step that you would probably need to do is to take these messages and convert it to the messages of the the message format of the framework that you're using, right? So every framework has its own messages format. So Master has its own. So we're doing that here on this line. We're just converting them. And then we can see that we are already emitting an event. In this case, run started. Each call to an agent needs to start with a run started event and end with a run finished event, basically to mark that things are starting and things are finishing, obviously. So we're doing this here in the beginning. And next, we're calling some master-specific code here. So basically, we're not going to go deeply into that. All we're doing is, giving it certain parameters. We're passing client tools. That's a feature of Master. And these are the tools that are defined on the front end, which is actually a feature of AGUI. So you can pass in a set of tools. Mostly they will live on your front end and make them known to the agent framework so that the agent framework can call back to the front end and ask to execute these tools and get results back. Examples of this are, you want to have to use a fill out a form, or so it could be interactive. Or another example would be you want to get the GPS coordinates from the user. You could also do that via a front-end tool call. All right, next, we already have a response here from Master, and we're setting up some things like the message ID and the response message. And Master is using Vercel SDK's data stream, so we're using that function to process it, and we are getting callbacks on certain events that we now need to translate to AGUI. So basically here we are translating a text message. We are getting some text, and we're sending out this text message chunk event, which takes care of, it's actually a special event. It makes things easier. You can look it up in the documentation, but basically what it does is it saves you from sending text message start and content and end. You can just basically dump the chunks as they come in from the LLMs or agent frameworks most of the time, and you don't have to do anything else. So that's how we deal with the text messages. Yeah, so the order is maybe a bit confusing here. So let's go to that unfinished message part later. We just want to also show that we are processing the tool calls here. It's the same thing basically as with text messages. I'm going to close that. And also we need to take care of any tool results. So basically, if a tool gets executed on the agent, so not on the front end, but on the agent, we are also streaming that tool calls back to the front end. And then in the end, we also want to return or send to the front end the result of that tool call. So that's what this is basically about. What this gives you, by the way, is also the possibility to render tool calls that are happening on the server side, so not on the front end side, and render them in real time, which has a lot of uses. For example, keeping the user up to date would be one of them. Right, so now we're going to look at the final thing that we're doing here. So we have a callback from the Vercel AI SDK called, oops, that's the wrong thing. I meant this one, on finish message part. So in this case, we are sending a final messages snapshot. That's not needed in all of the cases. That's just how you do it, how we ended up doing it with Master. And then, the most important thing is to let basically AGUI know the run is finished, the stream is finished, and then we're good. So yeah, and the rest of the code is basically just converting the messages, and that's it. That's how Master implemented AGUI.
Awesome. And does anyone have any? I know Daria had a question, but it looks like Tyler got to it. Tyler, do you think anything needs to be
In our plan, Daharia is asking about how essentially this integration works in a situation without Copilot kits. So I just wanted to give some clarification since I don't think we have anything prepared that doesn't use Copilot kit right now, but basically that we do have a external contributor that's adding a WhatsApp integration, which is kind of like another kind of proof of concept that's being built actively right now. Um, but just to give it kind of more clarification to the whole group, basically, AGUI is built by engineers at CopilotKit, but at its core, we're trying to make it an open protocol that you can use for anything related to user and agent interaction. Taharia, what they were asking about is essentially, for statically generated front-end applications, what is the actual mechanism by which data gets from the agent to the user? The answer there is just via an AGUI stream over HTTP. We're going to eventually be expanding that to something like sockets as well. And yeah, I just wanted to give that clarification, but we won't be going into an explicit example about that today, I don't think. Um, and then I'm seeing another question, which is keeping shared state between the client and the backend with the AGUI implementation. So there are agent state events. And if I'm understanding you, Olu, then let me know in the chat if I'm not understanding you. But maybe Marcus, you could show the state events for how you can share state between agents and the user.
Right, right, absolutely. So, and because I just have this line of code open here, so basically the run method is where you would start implementing shared state. So run and the input that run gets, the run agent input interface has a property called state. And by reading from that property, you can get any state that is being shared from the front-end side when this agent run is happening. And so that's how you get the data in. And if we go to the AGUI docs, we can go to a list of events here. And basically we have these state management events here. So, and you can send these events like you can send run started, or let's find a better one. Messages snapshot, for example. You can send a state event at any time. And basically what this does is it synchronizes your current agent state with the front end. So anytime you send a state snapshot, the state on the front end will get updated. Now, what if you make incremental changes to your state? For example, you're using a tool call to, propagate certain fields in the state, or an LLM call where the tokens come in, streaming. You can use the state delta event, which is giving you this delta property that you can send. And it's an array of JSON patch operations. And what it means is you need to send a snapshot event first, and then you can send any number of deltas that basically patch the state to the desired state. So you can only send the changes that you want to make instead of sending all of the states all over the place. And the last event, if you need that, for example, if you want to edit the message history, you can also send a messages snapshot that's going to replace basically the messages that were there before.
Awesome. Cool. We're going to consider that answered. Another interesting question for you, Marcus, that I think we could talk about, live here as a conversation, but it's basically just, is it easier to build apps that implement AGUI when the front end uses SSR, or if I'm reading correctly there, server-side rendering?
Server-side rendering?
Server-side rendering?
Is that what is meant, server-side rendering?
I think so. Malek, can you clarify? Yes. Yep. Server-side rendering. Essentially, it's just like a pattern where, I believe Next.js does this pretty commonly, where you render on the server side and pass those components upward. I can answer this question. AGUI is generic, right? So it kind of just, it's not easier to implement. It can just be implemented there, I would say. It's the same level of complexity. So in an SSR, say like you're doing server components in Next.js, you could talk directly to that stream and then respond with the events through that server component up and have that reactivity and everything like that. Um, I wouldn't say it's easier. It's just a flavor, and it's definitely something that you could do. Um, cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we have some other stuff, Nathan, planned. But
Yeah.
I had an idea. Maybe we could get people in the audience and they could, raise their hand and we can bring them in to talk about, things that they're envisioning for AGUI and things that they might like to do and ask questions as well to help them get started. Do we have time for that?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. First, I wanted to ask, so kind of a something I also had planned was we have uh, someone in the community working on something I think is pretty cool and pretty huge. And Clint, do you mind coming up as a panelist and talking about it for a minute? I can just bring you up.
Also, while we have everyone here, while that's going down, we record all of these sessions and upload them to YouTube as well.
Yeah.
We'll send a link out to all attendees today. And I think you have an emailing list as well.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
want to
Yeah.
get it.
Everyone will get an email.
Yep. Cool. Clint, I think you're live.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thanks for
Yeah.
being here.
No worries. Um, so yeah, I suppose probably just introduce myself first. I'm Clint. I'm a senior developer over at the RNIB here in the UK. For those unfamiliar, that is the Royal National Institute of the Blind. And essentially, we are a national charity that provides services to the blind and low vision community. We've been investing quite heavily in AI tools, and we've used CopilotKit, I want to say, for a couple of years now. Started on one of the very early versions, in fact, before you guys introduced the runtime, even back when the runtime wasn't the GraphQL craziness that it is today, where it was literally just a wrapper around OpenAI. Um, so it's been really interesting to see the development, mostly because we are a C#.NET shop. And so a lot of the moves towards agentic systems has kind of left us behind in terms of the integration. So the AGUI announcement was fantastic because it means we now finally have the tools to sort of upgrade to the latest version of CopilotKit and bring all of this capability along to our backend systems.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm working on sort of fleshing out the very earliest ideation, I'd say, around some of the C#/semantic kernel integration. And I'd be happy to share some of that progress with people today.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's exciting. I'd love to hear about it. This is actually I've only heard just one short snippet, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so one of our chief use cases is accessible media production. So things like large print PDF, text to speech, Braille, etc. One of the biggest problems we have is customers for things like banks, our health system, our welfare system. Overwhelmingly, they tend to be vulnerable individuals. These systems can be difficult to navigate even if you have your site. They're especially difficult to navigate if you don't. So we provide automated and human-driven systems for doing that transcription, but we're nowhere near the scale that we'd like to be able to. The sad reality is that most organizations just don't invest the way that they ought to. So we're really looking to lean on AI to drive the ability for people to essentially come to us and just say, here, I have this arbitrary document. It might be my bank statement. It might be the recipe book written by my grandmother. And now I'm losing my site and I want to sort of hold on to that as I go through that journey. And we would like to provide that tooling to empower both people to come to us independently and to really empower our staff and volunteers to sort of really increase the volume at which we're able to process these things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the earlier versions of how you were using Copilot kits, and then maybe we could start to talk a little bit about how you've been adding C# support for AGUI through an SDK as well as semantic kernel. How does that sound?
Yeah, absolutely. One moment while I just bring stuff up. I've got to kick the Azure environments into life because they've not been up for a little while.
Sounds good.
So,
Cool. While Clint's
let's
bringing that
just
up, any questions from the chat? Any thoughts? Anything that we can answer or facilitate? Now is your time. Cool. Maybe we can get like a bit of a show of hands. What are some agent frameworks that you want to add support for with AGUI? Like, what are some of the top ones at the top of your mind? You know, we obviously have some, but I would love to see some kind of like all the people that are here right now. What are some of the things that you're really excited about for AGUI that you would really like to see? So I see BAML right there. That's a good one. Pydantic AI. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another really good
nice.
one. Semantic kernel. Yep, you're in the right place. AI agents SDK, Google ADK. Yeah, absolutely. The great thing, and Clint will show us here in a little bit as well, kind of what he's been doing. But the great thing about AGUI, everything you guys are talking about, will absolutely be possible to support, and some of them are actively in progress. Like Agno, for example, we're working with the team over at Agno to add support there, and that's going well. That's in progress. Pydantic, yep, great. LangGraph already supported today. ADK, yeah, some of the usual suspects, I would say. So very cool. Replit, interesting. Yeah.
I think that should be possible, right, Marcus?
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
technically an agent.
you're saying Replit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Like, I would love to see a prototype using that.
Yeah. And then we also, at the end, a way to actually, fold in the community. We have I won't go into it right quite yet, but we have a sign up sheet if people want to start working on integrations. This is an open protocol. CopilotKit doesn't want to control it. We want to hand it off to the community and basically partner together.
Yeah, Henry,
So
I saw the Claude one. That's interesting. We're still getting a feel for that one, I think. Yeah, Waylu, Replit would be possible and interesting to see. Yeah, I would love to see what that would look like.
yeah, that'd be really cool. Clint, do you need more time?
no, I'm ready when you guys are.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
please go for
Fire,
it.
fire it away.
Stage is yours.
Perfect. Is that sharing?
It is now,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. So this might be a little small, so let me know if you want it zooming in because I am on an ultra wide, unfortunately.
Maybe you
So
could zoom in
this
on the
is
code a little bit.
yeah, so I'll show you the code in a moment because that's the AGUI implementation for the other stuff.
Yeah.
This is sort of our first stab at using CopilotKit. Once we get a handle on the AGUI stuff and this project gets resurrected a little bit, then that will get all of the AGUI integration as well. This is our mailing system. It's basically a configuration driven PDF/OCR scan in, set up a whole complex processing flow for extracting information, transforming it, doing transcription and everything like that. There's a whole section of sort of really driving the business case. So you've got like a full live document editor, and this is using the cell note system, I think it is. It's like a block-based editor thing. But we've got like a live preview of what the PDF would look like. You can listen to it using the Azure text-to-speech. We've got CopilotKit up and running here. And as I mentioned, this is very, very, very old version of CopilotKit. In fact, it doesn't even do front-end tool calls anymore because the API changed out from underneath us, and I got really annoyed at trying to map it over to the Azure OpenAI API because they changed from underneath us as well. So
Oh,
for
man.
now, it just does basic stuff with some back-end actions. But really, the meat of what I want to show today is this demo here. So this is a very rough replication of the background color tool call demo that's on the AGUI dojo. So this is essentially, I can say, set the background to blue, and then off it goes and does the same thing. And I can do now try one, which is a gradient inspired by the current date time.
It's an interesting gradient.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows
And
why it picks what it picks?
Oh, man.
and this is C#, right?
Yes. So this consists of a React TypeScript Vite front end with CopilotKit running in it, an Express.js app, which is just hosting the Copilot runtime with a HTTP agent configured to talk to our .NET backend, and then just a very simple ASP.NET Core .NET project, which is actually where all the AGUI stuff is happening. And so
Awesome.
in terms
Cool.
of the code, and this took about, I want to say, a day and a half to get up and running. It wasn't particularly difficult, running into some minor issues around the JSON patch stuff, but Marcus mentioned earlier about sending a state snapshot first. So that's something I've yet to try. I think that might be what was doing it. So we'll see.
Probably, yeah.
And Clint, could you zoom in just a little bit if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah.
Great.
How's that?
Could you do one more?
Yeah. Let me just shift things around. There we go.
Awesome. Thanks.
So no worries. As mentioned, this is just a Vite front end. So very, very ugly code because I'm just hacking at the moment. But essentially, yeah, I've just got standard React state, a little front end action for setting the background color, Copilot suggestions, and then just the Copilot sidebar registered. And then in the main TSX, I've just got the CopilotKit pointing at my local runtime, and it's just agent locked to the agent that I've told the runtime about. And then in the Express.js app, all I've got is the Copilot runtime. This code more or less lifted straight out of your documentation. And all that's doing is just saying, I've got an agent called Dummy, and here's where you can go talk to it. And then on the .NET backend side, this is using the semi-new Microsoft Extensions AI package, which is Microsoft's whole new abstraction layer for LLMs. And in fact, they're bringing semantic kernel and all the other AI tooling in the .NET space across to that abstraction layer. So in theory, by targeting this abstraction layer, it should be able to come straight across to semantic kernel without much mangling either. And really all we're doing is hosting a post endpoint at that URL. It receives that run agent input that Marcus demonstrated earlier, and some lovely C# stuff to do all the ceremony that things like C# require you to do. But essentially, all we're doing is just saying it's an event stream server-side event, server-sent events thing. Little helper method here to just serialize each of the base events down to a server-sent event. And then, yeah, all we do is we start our run. We've got a little Azure OpenAI client for going off and talking to that because we're using Azure AI Foundry for all of the model deployments that we've got. We build our little chat client. At the moment, I'm talking to 4.1 Mini. We tell the abstraction layer that we want it to use function invocation, and this will automatically handle backend function invocation for you. And in fact, the date time function that I demonstrated is running on the back end, and CopilotKit knows absolutely nothing about it. So you're able to combine the front end and the back end actions. We map all the messages that come in. So you can see it looks more or less identical to the same way that Marcus demonstrated with the Mastra integration.
Yeah, it does.
We just map things across. We do a little of extra mapping on our side to know whether or not we need to let CopilotKit know that certain function invocations are happening, because between the back-end actions and the front-end actions, they get a little bit confused about what's done what, and the Microsoft extensions function invocation stuff always expects that every tool call is immediately resolved with a response, which doesn't really play very nicely with the front-end actions. So all we do is we make sure that the abstraction layer never actually gets to see the fact that Copilot front-end actions are occurring, and it just keeps things happy. So all we do is we ask it to stream our responses back, give it all the tools that our front end has passed in through that run agent input, all the back-end tools that we've registered here, where we've just told the abstraction layer that, hey, you've got a function called get current date time. You can go invoke that however you want. And then just some little extra stuff. So like if we get an update and it's a function result and it's not one of our front end calls, then skip over it, or rather it is one of our front end calls, skip over it, so that the back end abstraction doesn't get upset. We just go through all the contents. If it's a function call, we end the current text message if we've got one. We send all of the tool call events that are necessary for CopilotKit to respond. And then just some mangled code to handle the fact that, oh, we've got content that needs streaming down as a text message and so on and so forth. End the event, end the run. And realistically, that's all there is to it. Is the biggest struggle was actually pulling the JSON mapping across, because the .NET JSON side really isn't as rich as TypeScript discriminated unions. And so you have to jump through all sorts of crazy hoops to do things like, if the type discriminator isn't the first property on the JSON object, then you have to prod it and tell it that it's allowed not to be, because for some reason, despite JSON not requiring ordered properties, they decided to require it to be the first property. Who knows why? Things like that happen in the Microsoft world, unfortunately. But yeah,
Wow, this is cool.
on the event side, it more or less looks identical to everything else that was coming along. The only difference is that you have to do all of the ceremony to teach it that they're allowed to be polymorphic, and here's how you resolve it and everything like that. But aside from that, yeah, so like on the back end, if I come into my get current date time function and I just reload this and I say create a gradient inspired by the current date time, you can see we've hit that breakpoint. That runs that function, that goes into the LLM, and the abstraction layer will actually take care of doing that function invocation loop for you. So if the result that came back from a function on the back end would imply the need to call another function, it does all of that itself. And then eventually it would resolve to, oh, now I need to call the front end tool. And then that's the point at which we would dispatch the event out. And off it goes, and everything just plays nicely.
Wow, that's incredible. This is really, really cool. Like even just seeing that breakpoint, because it's aesthetically typed language that, with the binary and everything, it's just so interesting, especially in the AI world. I think that C sharp and, other languages like Go and even Rust to a degree, they kind of get ignored. So it's like really
Yeah.
interesting because, you usually use like Python or TypeScript or whatever. And It's just really interesting to see, like one of these more traditional strong type languages like C# integrating with AI. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you. So the plan is to eventually draw this demo out to be closer to the Dojo demo, which is the predictive state updates live document editing one.
Mm-hmm.
The idea being PDF goes in, we feed that into Microsoft Document Intelligence. That gives us semantic structure about that document. It will do things like table extraction, turn it into Markdown for us, and then we take that, feed it to the LLM, get it to editorialize over it, show the edits it wants to propose, use a RAG system for examples and feedback, and then just provide like a collaborative canvas for the user and the AI to work back and forth on just modifying a document. Because a lot of the scenarios tend to be we've got unstructured data, we're looking for a needle in a haystack. Our scenario, unfortunately, is the very one AI is still not good at, which is no, you're not going in to extract a small piece of data. We want a 100% faithful, all the time, one-to-one recreation of the input document with a little bit of modification. And unfortunately, AI just isn't great there yet. So we have to build all of the guardrails to make all of that happen.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Yeah, and someone has a question, Clint, and they were wondering if they could see the Node Express runtime code.
Yeah, absolutely. So literally all this is a single JS file. And this really is lifted from the CopilotKit documentation for self-hosting the runtime. We just initialize an OpenAI client, spin out the CopilotKit OpenAI adapter, host an endpoint, spin out the Copilot runtime, and then just let the handler middleware that comes from the CopilotKit runtime take over from Express.js and just handle that entire request. Really, the only special part is these few lines.
Yeah, I
And
just
all
wanted
I
to
had,
add some extra content,
yep.
context, because we have some people here that have never used CopilotKit. So I just wanted to give context about what
Okay, yeah.
runtime even is. Runtime essentially in this case, for anyone wondering, is a CopilotKit concept for like basically a secure proxy where you can interact with the LLMs from a backend side of things. You can talk directly with these streams, but from CopilotKit's perspective, we proxy these through a backend, kind of like that SSR that we were talking about earlier. But we do this through, a runtime endpoint. This can be a Next.js endpoint, etc. And in this case, all that you need to do, Clint, and agnostic of all the CopilotKit stuff, is just provide us a URL, and that's it. That's how we communicate to it. And then I had one other question come through just as I was talking. What is Copilot Cloud? Copilot Cloud is essentially a hosted version of this runtime. So you don't have to interact with any of this. And we're going to be adding support for AGUI, and really it's going to become like the AGUI platform to a degree. So, that's kind of something that we're building out actively right now. But as it currently exists, it is essentially a managed runtime for you to interact with your agents.
Yeah, very cool.
Any questions for any of us? Clint's up here. I know there's a couple of people that have been spitballing about C# and semantic kernel. Any questions that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, and if someone wanted to raise their hand and come up here and ask it, you're welcome to do so as well. This is kind of an open format. All right, I don't see any raised hands.
All right.
Let's see. What tips do you have on state management?
State management from an AGI perspective, is that right, Wei Lu? Yeah, I mean, tips. I mean, in general, state can get really, really, heavy. And Marcus is here. He'll add some more color to what I'm saying. And so, streaming the deltas of that state is really important, as well as sending snapshots of that state over time to know, like at this point in time, this is what the state was, so that you can do special rendering for when the state was at that point. So, like a combination of streaming deltas as well as snapshots so that as you kind of get your history of chat over time, because maybe you use CopilotKit, maybe you don't, but like overall, CopilotKit is managing the state of that stream. And so like when you get a snapshot, we'll put that snapshot in. And when you scroll back up, that state will persist with what it was previously. So when that state updates again, you won't get new state. So state snapshots is one. The deltas that we were talking about earlier is another really big one. Marcus, do you have any other kind of tips and tricks about state management?
Yeah. So basically, what Tyler said, it's really important to send the deltas. So send your state snapshot first, send deltas after that to keep the bandwidth low and to keep things lightweight. And the second thing, I would just say, think about it. It's a very simple thing. You get state in, and you send state out, basically. So yeah, that's what I would add to it. It's a very simple thing. It's not something complicated on a protocol level.
So before we get to the next question, I just wanted to thank Clint again for graciously coming up here and, giving us a snapshot of what he's working on. I'm super excited about it, and I can't wait to see where this goes. And so thank you. We have another question. Would it have been possible to design CopilotKit without a runtime? Marcus or Tyler, do you want to take that one?
Why don't you take it, Marcus?
Yeah. So, okay. So, in theory, there are certain operations that could work without a runtime, but in practice, you always want to, authorize your requests, and there is a need for security. So for this reason alone, the runtime is really very important in a production application that is facing the outside world. Apart from this, there are only certain things you can do on the front end, and having the possibility of having a backend part to that and doing these things on the backend is really, really valuable. And there's going to be a lot of great features that are going to come out on top of the runtime implementation. So yeah. And the next question is, can you add authorization headers to the front end to call the runtime? Yes, you can do that in CopilotKit.
Yep.
It's in our docs.
Yep. Cool. I mean, I think we're kind of on the tail end of this now. And I think let's start to get into some next steps for all of the people that have graciously joined. We have this community sign up sheet, but you take it up. You take here, Nathan.
Yeah. So, as any other protocol, we want to start getting proposals. We want to, work with the community and do a proper handoff so that, everyone can contribute and everyone is welcome to contribute. And so I think probably the first step for the community is to start building with AGUI. And, so like we asked before, we want to know, and you can add, if we don't have any integrations in this, let me go back to this slide because it's this slide here is the community sign up sheet. And then we'll just add on top of it for proposals and stuff. But, in our second week, we want to find out what you're interested in building with or working on. And, let's get the community involved. So
yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to mention, this QR code is to a Notion page. And so I'll approve everyone who wants to sign up and put your name down. And even if it's just, we're going to offer, guidance and support as well for anyone who wants to, tackle an integration or a language. And yeah, so this is, if you're interested, please, join us.
Yeah, some other kind of extra bits I want to add on there, Nathan, and we'll be, I think, setting up some more official, roadmap work to a degree, like signing up for processes. This is a grassroots kind of open source effort, so we'll probably do this all in our GitHub. But if there is a specific agent framework that you want to get started with, The kind of next steps for you is we have this dojo inside of the AGUI repo. You can use that dojo to connect with your agents back and forth. And basically, it takes you through each feature that you want to implement and see if it's working. And so that's kind of the next steps for actually integrating with something. That's usually what we recommend. That'll have some guidance as well. And then finally, I think what we might do in the interim is if you have a specific agent framework that you want to add an issue for that inside of our GitHub and then assign it to yourself saying that I want to start working on this.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll make this a bit more of an official process moving forward. But for right now, for all the people here, if you're like, I really want to work on the ADK integration for AGUI, just put up an issue there. There's probably already one there, and you can assign it to yourself just so we know that somebody's working on that, and then we can update that. And we'll be in contact to support you along that way as well. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Let's see. Please more tutorials on connecting with LangGraph. So we do have quite a few Jen, have you checked out our YouTube page by chance? We've done some webinars and some live session coding with LangGraph. I don't think we've done LangGraph TS live, but we've done a lot of co-agents, Python, the Python SDK.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add one other thing here for anyone looking to start doing an integration. Here is our co-agents calendar. You can book time there to interact with us directly with like one-on-one support for whatever kind of framework that you're adding. And we'll be happy to do that. Basically, that'll go through one of our engineers and you'll have a one-on-one session with that. We will also send that along with the recording after this meeting.
Yep. Awesome. Great. Well, if no one else has any questions, I guess we will give you back 4 minutes and everyone can get back to their day and start building.
Yeah, go build the ADK in those 4 minutes. All right. See you guys. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks
Thank
for showing
you.
up. Thank you.